if you have any questions, now feel free to ask me, right? But I don't want any deviation from this plan. We have to see, we have to be seriously doing this plan, religiously following this one, right? And there are two, three things which I have marked as high priority, right? So if you see here, LWC integration and wrapper classes, correct? So I'll talk through the LWC things so that I should know like okay what all things that you are finding tricky and difficult in LWC. So I'll put down some details. I want you to participate actively, right? To let me understand what things you understood, what you don't understood. Okay. So when we talk about LWC, what is LWC and why we use? Can anyone tell me?
Sir, it's a lightning web component
Okay. And why we use it?
to create elements on a page or tab, to create tab view.
Yeah, that is fine. But why we need LWC? We have so many things, right? To create tab, to create pages, to create UI in Salesforce.
Yeah, but with the help of LWC, we can create our own, which uh, is like modify as per our requirements.
Correct. That is important, right?
Yeah,
So with the help of LWC, things which are not possible with standard UI, right? There you will need LWC, and this is happens in the real life projects because always the business requirements are tricky. That's where we need to build our custom UI. So LWC is specifically used for custom UI, which is not possible with the standard, right? Now, second thing is within LWC, we have three files: HTML, JS, CSS is also there, and then we have XML. Who can tell me about HTML? What is HTML file?
The structure of the
Sir,
page.
it is a
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Who else want to talk? Page structure again. See, try to express yourself. Now, what is mean by HTML? Why we need that HTML file?
To design web pages.
content development.
Correct, to design our page, web development, you can say, but specifically UI elements, we can say, right? UI elements, or you can say DOM. This is nothing but your document object model. So be it any form, right? All this UI, if you see this is again a UI, right? It has various components. It has tabs with menu, various things, icons, and all those things displayed here. This is again a UI. So whatever we see for the end user to experience, right? That is nothing but a UI. And HTML is a portion which will render. So that there always you will listen this word, right? Render. Render meaning what? It will display on the UI. So browser will display it like a painter draws something and then it becomes visible, right? That's how browser draw these elements on the UI, and that's how we see it. Now what is JavaScript? What we do with the JS file with respect to our LWC?
We create dynamic pages or
Correct. If we
dynamic
want to
interface.
add dynamics or dynamism to the components, right? Again, what else? If you want to access the DOM elements. Modify the DOM elements. So what are the DOM elements you are aware of? Can anyone tell me what are the DOM elements we generally or you have used? If you think of a registration form, what are the DOM elements you see on the UI?
Buttons.
Buttons, correct. Again, what else? Only buttons we see or something else to interact with the form?
Input fields.
Input fields, buttons, then we see select options, labels, we see tabular structure, right? Various things we see, some div elements with different styles, right? Whatever we see on the UI, if you want to modify it, access it, that is where your JS come into picture. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, getting the point. I'll repeat one more time, right? So your HTML is there. So say I'll try to put some diagram to better understand. I think in your, if you have done the LWC trailhead, there it has all those details. Detailed diagram is also there, right? How the flow happens in between. So what I'll do, I'll put something. Say if this is your, and feel free to stop me. If you don't understand, don't let me proceed. Okay, that's how we will make sure that you learn, understand the things. Now see, this is your HTML. This is your JS file. Okay. This is your, say, I'll put it, I'll copy one more time. This is say your CSS, and this is your meta file, or what we call it as a XML. Now we all know these are our components, and this is say our apex, and then I'll insert one more shape. I'm just trying to make you, better understand the things so that you don't need to revise it, because if we have a pictorial view, it becomes easy, right? Let me put database. So this is our very few colors here, right? Okay, this is your database. In our case, we call it as our SOQL language to fetch the data. Okay. And one more thing. Can anyone tell what is this? I'm just experimenting. This is our end user. Okay. So end user will always interact with your HTML, right? HTML we just saw. What is mean by HTML? So HTML is for displaying the UI elements. JS is for accessing, modifying your HTML. So JS can access your HTML. That's where JS come into picture. So yesterday we were trying to understand how JS will help us, right? So there are different ways that we'll see in some time. Let's proceed with the other file. So JS is doing this as one portion where it interacts with the HTML. So if I draw this with the help of say arrows, what we see is HTML to JS, and then you have JS to HTML. Can anyone tell me how you navigate from, how you pass the control from HTML to JS?
By data binding.
Okay. Any more details around that so that everyone understand how we pass the control? So I have a HTML form, right, where I am seeing the UI. So if I go here, see this is my HTML form, correct? On this I am able to see this four input, one pick list or select option, one date type of field, and one button. Now this is all my UI. Now when I am doing something, how I can pass control from here to my JS file? What is the way?
Events.
Correct. It has to be, always has to be some or the other event, right? So events are very important when it comes from JS, HTML to JS. This is all through events. Do you all agree on this one? Anyone has doubts around this? See, the control from HTML to JS is passed via event. Now, Akanksha, can you tell me in little more details, like what are those events?
Like on change, on click.
Okay, so I'll just try to note it down here. Okay, on, change, on, click, any other? Anyone else? Think of
Handling
various
a
options.
button click event.
Yeah, click is there, right? So we have click. In click, we may have double click as well. That is also a separate event, right? This is all correct. I want to know, do you know any other events apart from this? Anyone else? So when you have a drop down, you have on select, right? Whenever you mouse over on a particular element, you have on mouse over, right? What else? What other events are you aware of? So most important thing is you need to be aware of the events. Unless you know what are the events, how you will make use of it, right? So events are broadly into two categories. One is events that user is interacting with, right? Where some manual action needs to be performed. I need to go open the form. I need to do some interaction with the form. That is called your manual event, right? Interaction with the form. There is another event. What is that? Can someone tell me? What are the different other events without user interaction that happens? I'll give you one hint. So you must have learned about the
Sir, schedule.
scheduler is a different thing, right? In terms of Apex, it is correct. I am talking about the page itself, right? So when you are interacting, that is one type of event. What is the other type of event, which is called automated event as well, right? So those are nothing but page life cycle events, correct? Sorry, anyone saying anything? Okay, fine. Are you getting me, right? Events are of two types. Event where you need some intervention, that is manual intervention or manual action, you can say, right? And second is automated. And automated are nothing but mainly your page life cycle, correct? So what are those page life cycle event? Can anyone tell me?
Sir, on load.
Correct. On load, right? Then anything else? Look at this form. Suppose I am reloading this page, right? So when you are loading, that load event takes place. Then your form elements are getting what keyword I used here, that is called this one. Do you remember this keyword? Rendering means what? It is actually showing those elements to us, these DOM elements. So that is also a page lifecycle event, render. And when you close the page, it will unrender, correct? These are the two events. One is, first thing is when the page is loading, that is page load. Second is when these DOM elements are rendering, that is called render. When you are closing, it will unrender this. So that is called unrender. Getting the point? Render, unrender, unload. With if load is there, unload is also there, right? And there is something called connected callback. When the render is complete, it will then give the connected callback. Same way, when unrender is complete, it will give disconnected callback. But you need to read through this. Unless you understand the event, how you will make better use of JavaScript? Any question around this? See, I'll repeat one more time. What we are talking about is, I have my HTML. From HTML, I want the control on the JavaScript. Now we need to understand why we have JavaScript first, right? So JavaScript is to access the elements and to modify the elements in the JavaScript, or to add some element in the JavaScript, to remove some element in the in the HTML, right? Via JavaScript you can do that things. So JavaScript is to modify, to access elements from the HTML, or we can simply say JavaScript is to access and modify HTML page. Any questions around this, or it is clear? HTML and JavaScript,
Yes.
this two things are clear, right? Pranay, are you clear with this? What is HTML? What is JavaScript?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what is JavaScript?
Sir, JavaScript is used for like when we enter the values. HTML is only taking static values, but JavaScript make it use
Mm-hmm.
enter we enter some values and it takes values
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in short,
dynamically.
JavaScript is for adding dynamism to the HTML, right?
Yes, sir.
To access slash modify HTML components. Okay, this is all about JavaScript. This is one part of JavaScript with respect to our LWC. Okay, now from HTML, how the control passes to JavaScript? So that is through events. So events can be of two types. One is when the user interacts with the HTML DOM elements. Whenever I say DOM, it means your input box, select box, check box, your radio button, select option, or your normal buttons, images, right? Whatever DOM elements are there, if I do some manual interaction with that, then event can be triggered, right? And if you are handling that event, means what? On that event, you will pass your control onto the JavaScript. Where you will pass the control in JavaScript? What we call it as? Is it JavaScript variable or JavaScript method? What is that?
Property.
See, when you pass the event to handle, is it passed to the
Method.
property or a method?
Method.
Correct. So you remember the syntax, right? We say like, okay, on click equal to, we are putting that handle on click, or call this method, whatever your method name is, you are calling that method. Correct. We'll see to that, but first try to understand what does it mean by passing the control and where we are passing the control, right? Simply we are passing the control via events to our JavaScript method. Write it down here. Passing the control from HTML elements or DOM elements, right, to JavaScript method, always to the JavaScript method, whether it is manual or it is automated. In both the cases, we'll pass it to the right. Both the ways, it will be some or the other method that will be written in the JavaScript file that will handle things. That's where we call it as handler, because you expect something to happen, so you are passing the handle to that handler. Handler will do the job. Correct. So those handlers are nothing but JavaScript methods all the times. Okay, clear till now? Any questions around this before we move forward? Okay, I'll take it.
Connected callback in the
Mhm.
connected callback purpose.
So connected callback is again life cycle event, right? What you can do is you can go to that uh, LWC, whatever your trailhead for page life cycle event. Just read through that and try to implement. If you still don't understand, I'll explain it to you. Okay, it is nothing but one of the additional events, you can say. It's nothing else. The only thing you need to understand when it is calling that. Suppose if you want to pass something to HTML and your component is not rendered, and within that method you are trying to access that element, meaning a form is there and within that form there is no element, but you are trying to access that. So that time you will face issues. So that time you need to understand when to use onload, render, unrender, connected callback. So connected callback is always whenever your components are rendered, then only control goes to connected callback. So here you can try to modify some of the UI elements on load. So whenever your components are rendered, you want to modify some properties based on some business logic. That's where we use connected callback. Okay, it is just simply as of now you can take it as a one of the event. So for that you need to go to that trailhead where these all events are defined. Okay, and then you can come back with a particular question. I'll answer that. Okay, so till this point you are clear, right? Now what is HTML we know, what is JavaScript that we know. Forget about syntax and everything, right? Right now we are just talking about the concept and how the control passes via events and what are the different types of events that we pass the control from HTML to JavaScript. Correct. Next thing is from JavaScript, we directly once we access the elements, we'll pass back the things. We can modify the HTML tags. We don't need anything here, right? We don't need any event or so because event is already triggered and we are capturing that in the methods. Now next thing was adding styling. So most importantly, whenever you are using any LWC component, rendering it here. Now see how this button looks like as compared to how these div elements are looking like. It is taking the full width, right? There is no margin, no spacing, padding in between. That is where, and the color, the styling, whatever we see, where we can define that styling in which file,
Yes, yes.
This is fine.
right? So CSS file we define styling. Mainly remember, couple of things are pretty common. One is margin and second one is padding. This is very commonly needed. Rest all things will follow, but these are very basic ones. Margin we know when we were in the schools writing some questions answers, we know every page has some margin on the left hand side, and when we go to exam we keep additional margin on the right hand side as well, just so that we can get more supplements, right? Everyone does that, correct? So here if you see it also has two margins, right? One on the left hand side, one on the right hand side. So margin padding is just adding extra space. That is where we call it as a padding. You can take it as a cushioning just to increase the size, right? That's where we add the padding. So styling, always we need to define the classes in the CSS. Never use inline. So there is something called inline CSS. I will show you what is inline CSS, what is actual CSS, defining the classes and adding those classes in this DOM element. Okay, so that's where we use CSS file. And for CSS styling, again we have that developer toolbar, right? That we can use it. I'll show how to use that. Okay. Now, if you are clear with this, let's see one example, right? We have tried yesterday as well. So see here, right? If you see this UI or this UI, so suppose this is an element where I am performing some action. Okay, and I want to get this element attributes. I want to access this element. What are the ways to access this element in my JavaScript? Let me show you. Let me see like which component is this. So this is my learn LWC component. What I'll do, I'll just open the LWC. I'll use another lightning card. Now you know why we use lightning card, what is use of lightning card, right? It is kind of getting a proper background. Otherwise you don't get a proper background, right? If you don't use lightning card. It is not mandatory, but it is to make the UI better, right? That's where we use a lightning card. Now another question was, you don't get like when to use which element, how to use it, right? That was your another question, I think, yesterday. So for that, again, coming back to the same answer, what you need to do, you need to always refer to the LWC component library. See, even now, if I want to develop something, I don't really remember the syntax, right? What I do, you just need to understand how to Google. You need to be smart enough, right? No one is going to tell you don't use Google and show me how you do it. There's no need, right? Everyone is industry across, everyone is using Google. So the thing is, you need to roam around here, right? And try to understand, try to familiarize yourself with those components so that whenever there is a requirement, you know, okay, for this I'll need input text. Where I can find it, I can always go here. I'll say, okay, I need input. What type of input I need? All these are specified here. Even you can get color input as well. So many things are available. Password input, email input, file input, URL. So many types are available here. So if I want a text input, enter some text here, right? So what I'll do, I'll just copy this element. Okay. So this is my element. I'll put one button as well. So I already have a button, I guess, here. Where is that button? Record ID, get opportunity. This is the button, right? I'll put in the P title. So P is kind of your paragraph tag, right? Which will automatically add one line. And always keep proper indentation. Okay, should be always a tab in between. Okay, so what I have done is I added one input and one button. Okay, I can give name of my choice. What is the criteria here? If you use this LWC reps, it's like ID of this element, right? So if you use this should be unique across this form, this HTML page. If there is any other element, then it will get confused which one to invoke, right? Now I have put this. What I need to do, if I am declaring something, I need to write this method in my JS file.
Yes, fine.
Now what is wrong in this method? Can anyone point out?
Event needs to be passed.
Correct. We need to pass the event. Unless we pass the event, it won't understand, right? What is there in this event. Then we need to see. Okay, here I don't put any event, right? So what I'll do, I'll put one event here as well on change. So I'll give the name as on change handler. Make sure your name is unique. How you can ensure that whenever you give any name, it may it be a method name or the LWC reference name, that ID, copy and search here. If there is any other instance, there is nothing, it means it's a unique one, right? It's a simple funda. Let's write one more method. Again I need to pass the event. So in JavaScript, there are only two things that we are mainly dealing with. One is your properties, one is your methods. Same way, if you try to relate it with the Apex class, right? In Apex class as well, we always have two things. One are our variables, class level variables or method level variables, and our methods. This is no way different. So don't get panicked by JavaScript. The only thing is how to debug it. You need to learn that. Correct? You will have arrays as well in the JavaScript. The same way you have your for loops, you can have your loops. The same way you have array dot add method, you will have array dot push pop. All these things are same. There is small difference in the syntax, and for that you can always go to W3 schools, right, to learn the JavaScript, the simplest space. We don't need a complex JavaScript learning. We just need plain, simple, whatever JavaScript is essential for interacting with the HTML and the data. Okay, now what we have done, we have defined one method. This is on the event on DOM element, that is input text. Now this is on event on the DOM element called input button, or just button we can say. Okay. In both the cases, in the event, suppose now on change handler is defined on what? It is on this lightning input,
Input.
right? So what I will get in the event, is it this element or this element or this element or this element? Which element I will get in the event for this method? On change handler, here we are having this event, right? So which HTML element I will be having with this event? Can someone tell me? I'll try to add one more thing. Now this is you need to understand, right? Because that is where you are facing challenge. Yeah, give it a try. Don't worry. I'll help you with your answers, right? Just tell me, with this on change handler, when I see here in this method, in this event, what is the element that I will access?
The input field on which it is declared.
Correct. As simple as that, right? Wherever that event is happening, only that element I'll get in that event. So this is giving me the handle to that particular HTML element or the DOM element. And in this case, this is this input. I will not be able to access this one, right, with that event. Now, Ankush, can you answer this one? So with this button, now on click, I have this method HTML control handler. Okay. If I go here, I have one event. What is that element where I'll get the handle to with this event? Which element is there in this event? Is it input 1, 2 or a button?
Button.
Pass control. Yes. Lightning button.
It will be lightning button, right? Because here we are defining that event. So on whichever element we are defining event in the handler, it will always contain that element. Okay. So this event will be containing the input text 1, right? And the other event, let's try to put something. I will put EVT, whatever I feel. Okay. Let's see if it works. I think I made a mistake here. Okay. So this one is for the above one, where we are getting input text 1, and this one HTML control handler is for that button, right? So it contains that button, right? So this is having button, this is having that input text. Now let's try to save it and see how. So now try to understand what we have done. In HTML, we have added some elements to the DOM, one input text, another input text, and another input or another button. So there are three elements we added, right? Three DOM elements are added. When this element will render, after that I can access it. Without rendering, will I be able to access? So answer is no, right? So whenever we want to access this, we will go with that connected callback. So that's where, but go and read around that, then we'll come back to that point again. So here, how many elements we have added now in the DOM? We added three elements. Out of
Element.
out of those, on two elements we have declared the handlers. So if there is a change event happening, we have a handler. If there is a click event happening on this button, we have a handler. Do we have any handler over here?
No.
We don't have, right? So let's try to save it. What is that option to do hard reload?
Inspect element. We have to start first.
Okay, we have to start with inspect.
And on refresh button, right click.
Hard reload. See, I am also learning from you guys, right? It is not working. Happens. Let me try to edit pages because sometimes it works with this edit page, right? It's showing up here. Just save it. Go back. Still, it is not showing. Okay.
Click on refresh button, select the third option, clear cache and
Okay, that will
hard
clear
reload.
everything. Empty cache and hard reload. Okay, let's try to do that. Okay, it's showing here only. I was looking at upside. Okay, I added another uh, card, na? So it is appearing below this previous card. So we have these two elements. Let's try to look at the console. So I entered three. Like I have done three key presses, right? And with that, there is a change event happening. Whenever I do something with this, entering any character, it will trigger. So it triggered three times, and I am getting this enter some text three times because this is the label and I am printing the label. Now if I click on this, I'll get another label for this pass control. If I click it three, four, five times, again it is showing. If I keep on adding, this count goes on increasing, correct? So what we are able to do is now, whenever some user is doing some interaction, we are able to access that element in our JavaScript. Okay, with me till now. Now you know how to access your HTML element in the JavaScript. One way is using that event on whatever element it is triggering that. But what if I want this as well? This text I want to view. Now listen the question carefully. I am able to access this. I am able to access this because I have the events defined on this one, right? Now this is another element where I don't have any event, but on some other event I want to access this value. Say on the click of this button I want to access value for this. So what is the other way with which I can access this element without any event on this one, specifically on this?
LWC ref.
Correct, the ID, right? So imagine if there are 10 boys, right? And each one is having different name. So when you call the name, that person will respond. That's how it is, right? So what is the identifier for this element is nothing but its ID, and that ID, for that ID we are using LWC reps, right? So suppose if I use, I'm already using, right, that LWC ref. Let me go to HTML file. So I have this LWC ref. So there are two syntaxes. One is using LWC ref, or you can define name as well. And with that name, you can access using query dot template dot query selector, right? So that is the old way. Now recently it has come with this LWC ref. So what you need to do, you just need to define it here. So where I want to access that element on the click of that button. So on this click of button, I want to access the another input text box value. Here also, if I want to access value, I just put value. So event.target is nothing but that container or handler for that element, and this is the attribute value, label, name, whatever you want to access. Okay, so if you want to access any attribute, this is your place, event.target, and then access that attribute, be it any component, any element on the HTML side. I'll take a pause for a minute. You just think through this and ask me if you have any questions. Whatever we have done so far with this, right? We are just talking around the first plan part only, passing control from HTML to JS, or without event. What are the other ways to access? Or we can say not, the event is not happening on a particular element, but still we want to access, or event is happening on one element, and with that we want to access all other elements or any other elements. What are the ways to do that, right? Just look at the image and try to understand whatever we have discussed. So if no questions, can someone summarize? Akanksha, can you summarize what you have learned so far with this, only with these three things?
Firstly, we learned what all files are present, like
Okay.
HTML, JavaScript, XML file, and CSS file, which is optional actually, but we add it for margin and padding to add some styling to the HTML pages. HTML is the structure,
Mm-hmm.
and JavaScript will add a uh, dynamism to the pages, to the components,
Mm-hmm.
and then we learned about the events.
Mm-hmm.
There are manual and automated events, and then we learned about how to access the events in JavaScript file.
Correct. Anyone
Uh,
anyone wants to add anything? Yeah, sure. Akanksha, go ahead. You wanted to say something.
yeah, then after events, that uh, uh, we can access the events by event.target and also by ID. Like we can access the components by ID as well, and
Okay.
events by event.target.
Okay. So event dot targets is only when the event is happening on that particular element, whereas even our LWC reps gives us the ability to access the element without event actually happening on that particular element, right? So that
Yes.
is the only difference with the ID and the actual event dot target, I mean. Okay, Shubham, you want to add anything or this is it?
Those are thoughts.
Okay, Pranay, from your side, you got everything, or you have any questions around this? Pranay, you there, or
Yes, sir.
okay, you're getting the things right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ankush, what about you?
Yeah, no questions, sir.
Okay, see, the thing is where you need to spend extra effort is go to W3 school and go through the JavaScript things, JavaScript learning. So there, what you need to learn, I'll just give some pointers, right, for each one of you. So in JavaScript, you need to learn how to declare variables, okay, how to declare array and array methods, if else, for loop, checking empty string. Whatever you have learned in Apex, same things. Comparison using equal to operation, concatenation using your plus icon, right? All things you have already learned and using in Apex, same things you need to check with JavaScript, how it happens. Okay, if you do with these things, once you do array methods, you can see the objects array using JSON, or you can see simply JSON array. So if you see here, I have put one of the sample in the JSON. So this is one object in the JSON, and this is array using square brackets. I put three elements, 1 2 3, right? So this is declaring an array called array of JSON object. Okay, as we have our rows in database, key value pair, same thing is here in JSON. Okay, so let's stick to our topic, today's topic, right? Now we have learned event. Now we need to see how to access a element without event.target, and event is not happening on that element. So on the button I want to access that input text box. So what I need to do, I need to know the syntax. So you don't need to mug up the syntax, right? We can always go back and check how to use LWC reps in LWC component sample code Salesforce. Once you use 2-3 times, you will definitely get it. See what how it is accessing is, what it is doing, it is putting that name and then value or whatever attribute you want to access. So this dot ref, now compare these two things, right? Let's put it here. We'll first see it working and then we'll put it console.log. This dot reps dot, what was the name? I just try to copy this name. This dot, I want value. Fine. Let's see what was that method, empty cache and hard reload. So again, we know this. For this, what we are using? We are using event dot whatever thing is there, right? Event dot target dot then the value. So every time I am doing on change, it is getting the value part of it, right? Now if I put same thing here, nothing is happening because we don't have any event on this to handle whatever we are doing on this component, right? On this click, we have an event. Now what it is doing, it is passing the control to our JS. Now it's not printing that, right? Let me see if it is really working or not. So this is where you are facing challenge, right? How to debug. Because in JavaScript it doesn't throw any error. It will stop the execution. So what we need to do, either we need to use console log or breakpoints. Console log is straightforward. You can just put the logs. If it is going there or not, what is the issue there, we'll get to know. Okay. So let me try to reload this. This got deployed, but it is not moving forward, right? It is just printing that pass control to JS. Let's go back to our code again. Now we put this dot refs dot control input text 2. Instead, what I'll do, I'll put you can use comma or plus icon. Both are the concatenation operator. Let's try one more time. Now it is passing that control, right? Maybe sometimes it takes time. If I click, see now I am getting, right? So never panic, because if we are doing the things in the right way, never panic. And I know this happens when you are a beginner, because I have also gone through this phase where you don't understand what is happening and you just keep on changing, and you don't understand like what should I do so that it should work, right? That's the thing you are facing. But for that you need to see now see what I have done is I tried to put the complete element. Now you can see like that event, it is printing the entire element here. What all properties I can access, variant I can access export parts, all these things are, multiple things are available here, correct? When your component is rendered. Now what I have printed, see, I have printed the component dot event dot target dot label, then this dot ref dot control input text 2. If you see here, control input text 2, so this is printing the entire component. So this dot ref dot the id or the LWC ref is equivalent to your event dot target, isn't it? So what we are saying, your event dot target is equivalent to your this dot ref dot the LWC ref id that you put. Are you able to relate this now? This and this is equivalent. This we get only when on that particular element event is happening. This we can get irrespective of event is happening on that element or some other element. It means without that event happening on that particular element, we can access it from JavaScript. Once we have control in the JavaScript, we can access any element, any element, right? Whatever elements we see here, 3 4 elements we added. Other than that, there are many elements already existing. But if all of those are having this IDs given using LWC ref, you can access all those things once you have control to the JavaScript. Now, if I ask you a question, how do I get control in the JavaScript? What are the ways? Who want to answer this? Now we have seen this, right? I'll repeat the question one more time. What are the ways the control can come in the JavaScript?
By declaring events on HTML components and by using IDs.
So, okay, I'll again twist the question, right? See, I just asked you the ways to pass the control to JavaScript. So your first sentence is correct. No need to go to the second one. So it is the event, right? Within event, there can be two types. One is manual or other is automated. By that, your control pass from HTML to JavaScript, right? Now the other thing which you answered, you said like you can access using LWC reps. That is for accessing the elements. Okay, LWC ref is for accessing, but for passing control from HTML to JavaScript, it is always events.
Okay.
Okay, are you able to relate now? Or like see, this is the question which I asked yesterday only, right? What are the ways how we can access the element? What is the event? What is event.target? How we can access element using ID, which is nothing but LWC refs, right? Are we all clear on this one? This portion only. Any questions on this point? Whatever we have seen. Okay, so will you be able to go back, create some small elements? I don't want you to do everything in one go. I want to take step by step. First, we'll understand this one. We'll try to do some variable arrays, if else things to render some of the data on UI. Okay, once we are through with that, so one thing is using if else for loop in your JavaScript. Same thing you need to know in HTML. Can we do if else and looping? Who can answer me? Can we do this if else and looping in our HTML template file? I know you have learned this.
I think we can do.
Do you know how we can do that? You must have used this one. I'm damn sure.
We use the for item
Correct.
on the template.
Template. Correct. Template. If else and template for each for item whatever it is, right?
Yes, and key on the item below it or
Correct.
something
Key
like that.
on the item, right? We need to always use that key in the for loop, within that for loop, whatever elements we are rendering. Without that key, it won't allow. So only these things we need to learn. We don't need any rocket science here. And the key is to this is doing a practice. So in next session, I want you all to show me at least 10 different components with every component having different elements, different types of elements from your LWC component library and accessing its values or its properties using event, using LWC reps, right? Only this much I want from you all. Will you be able to do that? Or I'll say you have to do it. Otherwise, we won't go ahead, right? Because if you don't do that and then again I am telling you something else, you will forget about this one.